All right, let's dive into To Kill a Mockingbird. This deep dive is going to be good. You guys gave us quite a book to unpack.
Oh, yeah. It's a classic for a reason.
It really is. So get comfortable as we explore the lives of these characters and the whole world of Maycomb.
I think it'll be interesting to see how all the big themes that Harper Lee weaves into it all play out.
Absolutely. Um, you know, we've got to start with Atticus Finch. He's like the moral compass of the story.
Right.
But he seems to have like a kind of complicated relationship with the law.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's a lawyer,
Right.
but has a really strong aversion to criminal law.
It is kind of interesting, isn't it? You'd think a lawyer would drawn to that area, but
Yeah.
his aversion comes from a very specific experience, actually.
Okay.
Early in his career,
Uh-huh.
his first two clients, the Haverfords,
Oh, right.
they insisted on pleading not guilty to murder, even though Atticus urged them to take a lesser charge.
Well, because they were Haverfords. And
Exactly.
Haverfords don't run. That's it. And, well, they ended up being hanged. And it really shook Atticus. It's something he carries with him throughout the whole story.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, when he takes on Tom Robinson's case, knowing all the racial biases in Maycomb,
Yeah.
it makes it even more significant.
For sure. That's one of the things that makes Lee's writing so brilliant. She could easily made Atticus like a huge advocate for criminal justice, right?
Yeah.
But by giving him this baggage,
Hmm.
this aversion, his decision to defend Tom is just that much more powerful.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if, like, part of him was fighting against those Haverfords, you know?
Oh, yeah.
In a way, proving to himself that justice can prevail even when it seems impossible.
That's a great point. There's definitely a sense of redemption there. Almost like he's trying to make amends for what happened.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So all this is happening as he's raising Scout and Jem, his two kids, on his own.
Right.
How do you think they fit into this world that Lee's created?
Well, Scout, I mean, she's our narrator. So
Mhm.
she's our window into this world. We see Maycomb through her young, inquisitive eyes. And it's so crucial that Lee chose a child to narrate.
Why is that?
Well, because it allows us to experience these things, these events, with that kind of innocence,
Yeah.
which makes the realities of prejudice and injustice that much more jarring.
And we can't forget Jem.
Oh, no, of course not.
He's older than Scout, so we see him starting to grapple with all the complexities more.
Yeah, he's right in that in-between stage,
Mhm.
straddling childhood and adolescence. Like, he still has that sense of wonder and adventure, but
Right.
he's also starting to see how heavy the adult world really is,
Yeah.
especially as the trial unfolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their fascination with Boo Radley is like a perfect example of that.
Yes.
This kind of reclusive figure
Yeah.
who's the subject of all these rumors and legends.
Right.
And they're like both scared of him and intrigued by him at the same time.
It's almost like a game to them at first,
Yeah.
trying to get him to come out, leaving notes, peeking into the windows and everything. But then, as the story progresses,
Yeah.
their fear turns into something more like empathy.
It's true. Like when he mends Jem's pants and leaves them on the fence.
Yeah. Mhm.
Or when he puts the blanket around Scout at the fire.
Uh-huh.
It's like these small acts of kindness start to change their image of him.
Exactly. And this is another thing Lee does so well. She doesn't come right out and tell us that Boo's a good person. She shows us through these little actions and lets us form our own conclusions along with Scout and Jem.
It's true. And it's like those small acts are foreshadowing the huge role he'll play later.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like she's laying the groundwork, getting us ready for the moment. Boo steps out of the shadows.
Wow.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how much of that change in like their perception comes from Atticus.
Oh, yeah.
He's always encouraging them to think about other people's points of view, to walk in their shoes.
Right. Empathy is like so central to the story. And it's not just about understanding Boo. It's about everyone in Maycomb. Even those who seem different or even mean, like Mrs. Dubose.
Oh, man. She was something else.
I know.
A morphine addict who criticizes Atticus for defending Tom.
Right.
It seems like she was the definition of Maycomb's prejudice at first.
She did, but she also displays courage in her own way.
How so?
Well, Atticus points out that she chose to die free of her addiction.
Oh, yeah.
And that takes a lot of strength.
You're right. It's interesting how all the characters are so complex.
Yeah.
It's not just good or bad. They're human.
They are.
And I think that's what makes them so relatable. Like, even if we don't agree with them, we can still understand them.
And that understanding, that willingness to see things from different perspectives,
Yeah.
is what Lee wants us to do as readers.
It's like she's saying, hey, don't judge these characters based on your first impression. Look deeper.
Exactly.
You'll find something more nuanced, you know?
Something more human. What do you think about that?
What do I think?
Yeah, like, do you think she's asking us to confront our own biases and prejudices?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we all have our own Maycombs, right? Our
Yeah.
own versions of Mrs. Dubose or Bob Ewell.
Yeah.
People that we judge without really knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe if we step into Scout's shoes, we can learn to see things a little differently.
It's fascinating how Lee uses this made-up world to hold up a mirror to our own lives. And that's probably why, even after all these years, the book still resonates with so many people.
Absolutely. Now, talking about Maycomb's social dynamics, the trial of Tom Robinson really brings everything to the surface.
Mm.
Like all the tension over race and class just boils over.
It is the heart of the story. We see these themes of justice, prejudice, and courage all collide.
But before we get into all that,
Okay.
let's look at some other characters like Walter Cunningham and Calpurnia.
Yeah, good idea.
They show us different sides of Maycomb, and they have different perspectives on the challenges of living in this world divided by race and class.
Walter, coming from a poor white family, shows the economic disparities in Maycomb.
Even within their own community, there are lines drawn.
Exactly.
And remember that time when Scout tries to explain Walter's poverty to Miss Caroline
Oh, yeah.
and gets in trouble? Classic Scout.
Total Scout move. Trying to do the right thing, but not quite getting the social rules.
And that's when Atticus steps in to teach her about empathy.
Yes. He tells her, you never really know someone until you look at things from their point of view.
It's like he's trying to get her to see that everyone is going through something. And judging someone without knowing what they're going through can lead to, well, misunderstandings.
And prejudice.
Right, right. And then there's Calpurnia.
Oh, yeah, Calpurnia.
Yeah.
The Finch's housekeeper.
Who's really like a mother to Scout and Jem.
She is.
Hmm.
But she also lives with all the complexities of a racially divided society,
Yeah.
in a way that the kids are just starting to figure out.
It's like she has a double life, speaking one way at the Finch's house and another in her own community.
It's a survival tactic.
Yeah.
For her, it's how she fits into these different places.
Right.
And it shows how much Black people had to do to just get by in a world that was constantly trying to shut them out.
It's true. And Jem starts to notice this. He's surprised when he hears her speaking differently at church.
It's a turning point for him.
It is.
He's starting to see these invisible lines
Yeah.
that divide Maycomb,
Yeah.
how race affects people's lives.
And it sets him up for his experience with the trial, where all of that becomes so much more real and painful.
Absolutely.
Which I guess brings us to the trial of Tom Robinson, this huge event that kind of hangs over the whole story.
This is where it all comes to a head,
Uh-huh.
where all the pieces of Maycomb's messed up social fabric unravel.
Yeah.
But before we go there,
Okay.
there's one more person we should talk about.
Okay.
Mr. Dolphus Raymond.
Yes. He's got a unique perspective on Maycomb, that's for sure.
He does. He
Yeah.
chooses to live with the Black community.
But instead of facing all the judgment, he pretends to be drunk all the time.
It's sad, in a way,
It is.
that people are more willing to accept a flawed white man than someone who challenges how they think.
It's true. It's like he's found a way to live how he wants, but
Yeah.
it comes at a cost.
It does. He's kind of an outcast
Yeah.
in both communities.
Do you think that's like a comment on how hard it is to be different
Oh, yeah.
in a place like Maycomb?
For sure.
There's that conversation he has with Scout and Dill during the trial
Uh-huh.
where he tells them he only pretends to be drunk.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful moment.
It is. He's basically saying, hey, this is what people do to survive sometimes.
Wow. It makes you think about how everyone in this story is searching for connection and understanding.
Yeah.
Like Scout and Jem with Boo Radley,
Yeah.
Atticus with Maycomb's Prejudice, and Mr. Raymond just trying to be himself.
It reminds us that no matter what we look like or where we come from, we all want the same things.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we're ready now. Let's step into that courtroom
Let's do it.
and see how the trial changes everything.
Gonna be intense.
It really is.
Yeah. So the courtroom, it becomes like this stage where all of Maycomb's drama plays out.
Yeah.
You've got Atticus standing there
Yeah.
like a beacon of integrity, fighting for justice in a system that's totally rigged against Tom.
I know. It feels like they don't stand a chance.
Right.
It's like no matter what Atticus does, the jury has already decided.
Yeah, that's the really sad part. I mean, the courtroom is supposed to be about fairness.
Right.
where the facts matter. But Lee shows us how prejudice can just poison everything.
And it's not just the jury.
No.
You see it everywhere in Maycomb, like how the townspeople react.
Yeah.
The whispers and stuff.
Right. It's like you can feel this tension in the air.
Yeah.
Like something bad is going to happen.
Oh, totally. Remember when Scout and Jem are sitting up in the colored balcony?
Oh, yeah.
With Reverend Sykes? It really shows how segregated their world is.
It does. They're literally separated from the rest of the white community.
Yeah.
And it forces them to see things from Tom's point of view.
And then there's Atticus's closing argument.
Oh, man.
He just tears apart the prosecution's case.
He does.
It's amazing. But it's more than just, like, a legal defense.
Yeah.
It's like this plea for everyone to just understand and be kind.
It's like one of the most famous moments in American literature.
It is.
Atticus reminds the jury that everyone deserves to be treated equally.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what they look like.
Nope.
He's basically saying that Tom Robinson is a human being, a man,
Exactly.
not just some stereotype.
Right. And you realize he's not just defending Tom.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's defending the very idea of justice.
Mhm.
Like, truth and fairness should always win.
It should, but
Yeah.
the jury still finds Tom guilty.
I know. It breaks your heart.
It really does. It just shows you how powerful prejudice is. It can blind people to the truth.
And it destroys Jem's faith in the system. Like, he can't understand how they could ignore all the evidence.
It makes him realize that the world isn't always fair and
Uh.
that adults don't always do what's right.
That's a hard lesson.
It is. It's like this loss of innocence for him.
Yeah.
And then there's Scout. She still has this little bit of hope, like maybe people can change.
That's interesting. So they deal with it in totally different ways.
They do. It shows how hard it is to grow up in a place like Maycomb.
I know.
Mhm.
Trying to understand why things are so messed up,
Yeah.
but still wanting to believe that things can get better.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Tom Robinson dies.
Yeah. So sad.
Trying to escape from prison, they shoot him.
It just shows how unfair everything is.
It does.
And it makes you think about how brave Atticus was to even take the case.
Oh, yeah. He knew he was going to get a ton of backlash.
But he still did it.
He did.
Because he knew it was the right thing to do. And even after the trial, it doesn't stop.
What do you mean?
Well, Bob Ewell, he wants revenge. Oh, right.
That scene where he confronts Atticus outside the post office is scary.
Oh, I know. Especially knowing what happens later.
It's like you can see how much he hates Atticus.
He does.
And he'll do anything to get back at him. But Atticus, even when he's being threatened, doesn't fight back.
He's amazing. He just stays calm.
Like, he understands that fighting violence with violence won't solve anything.
He's just, like, on another level.
Hmm.
But Bob Ewell,
Yeah.
well, he can't let it go.
No.
And his anger ends up getting directed at Scout and Jem.
That attack on Halloween night.
Ugh, it's terrifying.
It is. You realize how vulnerable they are.
You said it.
Yeah.
Ewell hiding in the dark.
Yeah.
He's like this symbol of everything that's wrong with Maycomb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
But then, in the middle of all that chaos,
Yeah,
Boo Radley shows up.
he does.
He saves them.
It's pretty crazy how the person everyone was scared of
Yeah.
ends up being the hero.
It is. It's like Maycomb is finally seeing Boo for who he really is. Like all their fear was based on nothing.
And it makes you think,
About what?
about how we judge people. Boo, the one they called a monster, turns out to be the most courageous one of all.
It's true. And after the attack, Sheriff Tate decides to protect Boo.
Yeah, he lies about what really happened.
It's kind of controversial, right?
It is. Like, where's the justice?
Yeah. But Atticus understands why he did it. He realizes that putting Boo on trial would be even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to break the rules to do the right thing.
And I love that last scene with the Scout walking Boo home.
Me too.
It's like this moment of pure acceptance.
It is. She sees him as a person, not a monster.
And it all comes back to that idea of walking in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Once Scout sees the world through Boo's eyes, she gets it.
She understands him.
Yeah. Boo is a mockingbird.
He is. Someone who needs to be protected.
It's a good reminder that we're all connected.
We are. Even in a world full of bad stuff, there's always room for kindness.
It's true. And the lessons from this book, they go way beyond Maycomb.
We do.
They're about how we treat each other and how we make the world a better place.
Before we finish up with To Kill a Mockingbird,
Yeah.
I think we should talk about the mockingbird itself.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
There is. It's more than just a bird, right?
Right. It represents something much bigger, like the whole point of the story.
Exactly. Atticus says that mockingbirds don't hurt anyone. They just sing beautiful songs.
And bring joy to the world.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that becomes a symbol for, like, innocence. People who are treated unfairly. The victims of prejudice.
like Tom Robinson
Exactly.
and Boo Radley.
Yes. Even Scout and Jem, in a way.
Oh, interesting.
They represent a kind of innocence that's threatened by everything going on in Maycomb.
So when you think about the title, To Kill a Mockingbird,
Yeah.
it takes on this whole new meaning.
It does. It's like destroying innocence, silencing people who are different.
It makes you think about the mockingbirds in our own lives.
It does. The people who are vulnerable, the people who are pushed aside because of who they are.
And Lee's telling us to protect them, to speak up for them.
And remember, hurting a mockingbird, it hurts everyone.
It's true. You know, one of the most powerful parts of the story for me is watching Scout grow up.
Oh, yeah. She goes through such a transformation.
She starts out as this curious little kid.
Yeah.
And she learns so much from Atticus and Calpurnia and just living in Maycomb.
Those lessons are tough, though. She sees a lot of bad stuff. Prejudice, injustice, violence.
But she never loses that sense of wonder. Like, she still believes in people, even after everything she's seen.
She's a pretty amazing character. And
Yeah.
because we see everything through her eyes,
Yeah.
we get to rediscover the world, too.
That's beautiful. You know, we've talked about the characters, the trial, the themes.
Right.
But there's one more thing that ties it all together.
Okay.
Family and community.
Ah, yes. They play such an important role in the story.
I mean, Atticus, as a single father, is just incredible.
He is.
He creates this loving home for Scout and Jem.
A place where they can ask questions and figure things out.
And he doesn't avoid difficult topics. He talks to them about racism and injustice.
Right.
And he teaches them to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
He's the best kind of dad.
He really is. And then there's the whole community of Maycomb.
Oh, yeah. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone.
But even with all the gossip and old-fashioned ways,
Yeah.
they help each other out. They look after one another.
We see that when Miss Maudie's house burns down.
And when they protect Boo.
Yeah.
And even when they finally admit that Tom Robinson was innocent.
It shows that even in a place as divided as Maycomb, there's still hope for people to come together.
And it makes you think about your own community, right?
It does. What can we do to make things better? To create a place where everyone feels like they belong.
It's something to think about. Lee's Maycomb is both a snapshot of a specific time in America and a story about people everywhere.
It really is. It's about how complicated relationships can be,
And how hard it is to create a fair world.
but also how powerful hope and kindness can be,
Yeah.
even when things are tough.
You know, it's amazing how much Harper Lee fits into this one story. I mean, we're talking childhood family justice, racism, and it all comes through these characters who feel so real, like you could just run into them on the street.
Yeah, and it's even more incredible when you consider that she's tackling these really heavy topics through the eyes of children. Like, Scout's narration doesn't sugarcoat anything, but it's all filtered through this lens of innocence, which makes it even more powerful.
For sure. It's like we're right there with Scout and Jem feeling all the excitement of the Boo Radley mystery and the confusion during the trial, and then that huge disappointment as they realize that the world isn't perfect.
Exactly. And through it all, Lee is making us think about our own biases. She's not telling us what to think, but she's definitely pushing us to look at the world and ourselves a little closer.
So we talked earlier about how To Kill a Mockingbird goes beyond its time and place. Why do you think that is what makes it so universal?
I think at its heart, it's about empathy. It's about trying to see the world through someone else's eyes and challenging our own beliefs and remembering that we're all connected, on a human level.
That's so true. And those themes are something we can all relate to no matter where we come from. I mean, we've all seen prejudice and injustice, and we've all struggled to figure out this crazy world.
And To Kill a Mockingbird gives us a way to think about all of that. It reminds us that even when things are bad, there's always hope. There's always a chance for things to get better and for people to connect.
And it shows us that we can all be a part of that change, that we can stand up for what's right and fight for justice and try to be more understanding in our own lives.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious what really stood out to you, what parts of the story stuck with you or made you think.
It's something to really consider, What does To Kill a Mockingbird say to you about your own life and your community and the world around you? And what lessons can we learn from Scout and Jem's journey that we can apply to our own lives?
Maybe even more importantly, how can we be more like Atticus Finch? Standing up for what's right, fighting for justice, and showing the next generation what really matters: empathy, understanding, and compassion.
That's a great point and a great place to end our deep dive into To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mhm.
We hope this has given you a new way to look at this amazing story and maybe even inspired you to keep thinking about it long after we're done.
Thanks for listening.
And thanks for joining us.